a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh,
RenéMarie Stroke of Luck. I'm RenéMarie, as everybody knows. This show is really an important show. We're honoring Miss Amber. And honestly, I've only read a little bit about each article that was written, but I admire Allyson so much in the work that she does. And I can feel the passion and love and commitment. And I've known her for many years. I've only met her once or twice. But the work that she does is really critical in life. And we're going to let her tell the story, and we're going to let Amber's story be told by our guests, because it's really important. But I just want to share that RenéMarie's Language of Love and Stroke of Luck TV show doesn't feel comfortable in telling you what you should do in a critical situation like this. I don't know what that was. Anyway, so life and death. This is about life and death. Amber was on a life support, and they really had to make the call as to, I don't want to be careful in what I say. I'm going to let them share with you. But this show is just about Amber's story. And I know that it's really important to share stories, because there could be somebody in the world going through something like this, and they need support and help. And that's what Amber and Gina and Maria, who's on the phone as well, can bring to you. Of course, Michael Ewan from Believe Stroke Recovery is our guest co-host today. We're thankful for Michael to join us today. And Michael can feel the same as I do, that this could have been us when we suffered our stroke. Amber, I think my story is correct in this. She went into the hospital on a elective surgery. And then she suffered a stroke during that elective surgery. So Michael and I could really connect to that, because we both suffered strokes. And could you imagine, like, put yourself in the place of that family, how it felt when your loved one suffered a stroke? It's humbling that we have the possibility and we're able to talk to people right now. It's like I wouldn't be here. And for many years after I suffered my stroke, when I went to funerals or wakes, or when I saw a passing, I'd get very emotional because I thought to myself, that could have been me. That could have been me. And how gifted, how blessed I am to be able to still be here, And what am I going to do with that second chance in life? And that's what my book, Extra Inning, is about. I'm in the extra inning in my life. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to waste it? Am I going to sit on the sidelines and not do anything? Or am I going to, fight and make awareness to people? Michael, before we, let Alicia and Gina talk into that a little bit about your feeling about it could have been you. It could have been you.
Mine was kind of interesting. I never, ever thought I was not going to pull through. But Jennifer, my wife, the doctors had her call in my family, and they were in Dallas, Texas, and we were in Raleigh, North Carolina. So all my brothers, sisters, and mother and father flew in. And I still didn't put two and two with I could pass away. But I think that there were lots of prayers at lots of churches from North Carolina to Dallas, Texas, and lo and behold, my bleed stopped. And I basically consider it a miracle that it stopped, but it wasn't my time, and God had a purpose for me.
Yeah, it's very humbling. I do want to share that when I was doing the post, I promoted that Gina was a New York attorney, and I was incorrect in my understanding. Allyson and I had been pulling together this show so quickly because it just happened this past week that Amber passed, and I think it was this past week. And I was incorrect. Gina, before I let Allyson feed into this story and to really tell us the story, correct us on where you're legally doing your work.
Sure, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me on this morning. It's an honor and a privilege to be with both of you. And you and Michael, you have beautiful testimonies to share for the world. So thank you for raising awareness. Yes, so I'm licensed. My state bar is in Massachusetts. I do live and I'm from upstate New York, the Utica, New York region. I am an affiliate volunteer attorney for Pacific Justice Institute. So I handle the upstate New York region for them. And Pacific Justice Institute, they're a national legal defense firm, not-for-profit, and they've been defending religious freedom and liberty, sanctity of life issues, parental rights, and civil rights nationwide, and they have dozens of offices. So we'll get into this after. Thank you for clarifying. But when I received the call, it was a Saturday night from Dr. Byrne at 11 p.m. I knew we had an emergency. So I immediately reached out to Pacific Justice Institute, got them involved in this, and that's what kicked the ball and got everything rolling. So, but thank you.
Oh, anytime. Allyson, so share with us, your proper information of where your center, and then really start us off on the story. Tell us a little bit about Amber's story.
Yeah, so a little bit of my background is in 2007, I received a call. My father was in a horrific motorcycle accident in Florida, 16 weeks in the hospital. We didn't think he would live, but by the grace of God, he lived. And I made a promise that I would spend the rest of my life helping others. It really touched my heart. I built a center, a rehabilitation center with all modalities under one roof: speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, structured day program, a food pantry to feed the community. And I also have a house that people live in, mostly young people with different types of brain injuries, strokes, traumatic brain injury. So we have never stopped. We just keep going forward. And I receive these desperate phone calls from really around the world. And I get involved with my heart. I lead with my heart. And we received a phone call about a month ago from Amber, a young lady, 23 years old, that went in for surgery and everything that could have gone wrong did. She had a major stroke on the table, brain
So
bleeds.
you received, Amber called you?
I received a phone call from Amber's sister,
Okay.
Kay.
Okay, go ahead. I just want to
Yeah.
clarify.
So I received a phone call from Amber's sister, the only family member that was here by her bedside, that went in with her to have this routine surgery, thinking she'd be there for 2 days and go home. And she was by her bedside for a month, lived in a hospital chair, was just so depressed and scared, reached out basically just asking for help. And I knew when I got that call, I had to get involved. So we pulled together a wonderful team that I admire. I've worked on many of the team before on past cases, and we pulled together. We went to court. A lot of the people I work with work pro bono. They're just amazing people. And we fought and fought because they declared her brain dead a week after she had her surgery. And being so young, we just wanted time for her and to get the right evaluation. And we all saw signs that possibly she wasn't dead. And that's where our fight began. Gina came in, and I'll let Gina take it from here.
Go ahead,
Thank you, Allyson. And thank you so much, Allyson, for everything that you do. So I was connected to Allyson actually in 2020. I had a friend, I was a healthcare proxy and she was wrongfully declared brain dead. And I contacted Bobby Schindler, and he put me in contact with Allyson at New Beginnings. And what they do in these types of brain death cases is once they get a determination of brain death, that triggers the brain death regulation for the state, and each state has one. And then they put a death certificate on a living person who's in treatment, who's in need of all life-saving treatment and care to protect and preserve their life. But they don't get that because now they declare them dead. So the hospital won't treat them, so on and so forth. So it was such a challenge, but I was able to find a doctor that was able to get a tracheostomy and a PEG tube that these patients need in order to transfer them out to a facility like Allyson's, where they can protect and preserve their life and give them the treatment that these patients need to try to wake up. And
Can I ask something? Can I
Yes,
ask something?
absolutely.
You said wrongly.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
I think you said that the one case you were on, they were wrongly diagnosed as having brain dead. I mean, that to me is like, I've had many patients on the show, many stroke survivors, that they were misdiagnosed when they went into the hospital.
Right.
You know, it's scary. It's scary that the life, that someone's life's hands is in one person or one hospital's
Right.
hands, know. I mean, and I'll let you get back to it, but if I don't talk before when I'm thinking of it, I will definitely forget. So I mean, what rights do people have when this type of situation happens? You know, what's the right that people have? And is it different in each state, Gina?
So it's different in each state, but it's basically the same. So each state may have like a little tweak of a word or something. For example, in New York, to declare somebody brain dead, it's under NY New York C, which is Codes, Rules, and Regulations 400.16. And the determination of death for somebody that's declared brain death, it's the irreversible cessation of all brain functions of the entire brain, including the brainstem. But what they don't do in all of these cases nationwide is they don't test all brain functions. For example, in Amber's case, we were trying very hard to get the court to order the test that we needed, which was the T3, the T4, and the TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone, because that would prove that if that is working, the hypothalamus, then her brain is not dead. Because brain dead is really a lie. It's a legal fiction. And it started back in the late 1960s, and it's for the purpose of organ transplant, harvesting and transplantation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the truth, the cold hard truth. So what rights do we have? the truth of the matter is, once declared brain dead, we lose all our rights. So when you started off your show, I thought it was important when you made a comment that, you don't make the call, it's for whatever the patients are, but in these types of brain death cases, the patients, they don't make the call, neither does their families. And that's why we have to haul them into court, the hospital.
And that's what you guys were going to court for.
Yes.
Yep. And we have to try to get an emergency petition and a judge to order all life-saving treatment. And Allyson can tell you too, that in this case, they don't feed them. Miss Amber was without nutrition since, I believe, August 9th, when she was declared brain dead. Very, very little water, no life-saving
How
treatment.
could they do that? I mean, that to me just doesn't, it's inhumane.
It's
It's
I mean, even if, and it probably comes all down to money. Am I correct in my thought process?
Yes,
It comes down to how much it'll cost to do everything to keep this person alive and to continue to have a, whatever type of, life support they could have at that particular time. Am I correct?
so that is correct. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that they have to protect the $48 billion organ transplantation industry. So in my case, when I was connected through Allyson a few years ago through Bobby Schindler, and my friend had a death certificate on her, which means that it's impossible to transfer out because Medicare and Medicaid, they're not going to pay on a dead person. So Bobby Schindler, through the grace of God, told me about Allyson, who's such a beautiful soul. When she says she lives by her heart, leads by heart, she truly does. And it's very big. So thank you. And he said, call her. She doesn't care about things like that. Death certificate. She was willing to take my friend, but the judge denied everything. So we weren't able to transfer her out. And sadly, they pulled the plug on her. But when I received the call from Dr. Byrne about Miss Amber, he connected me with his sister, Miss Kay. And I told Miss Kay, contact Allyson because she will take your sister. And so, but it becomes a lengthy court battle, but it is to protect the organ harvesting and transplantation industry, as difficult as that is to comprehend and understand. But
I'm actually listening to you, and like I work, so I have the clarity of protocols and reasons and all that kind of stuff. So I get it. I understand it, but I don't agree with it. I don't
yes.
can't even fathom how you cannot honor that person that is laying there on the table with it. They're completely when they're not really what's the word, not passed on, what's a death certificate. How could you put a death certificate on somebody that isn't actually passed over yet? I'm stumbled by it. I just can't understand.
And they do that because once they get a brain death determination, like I said, it triggers whichever state you're in, that brain death regulation, and each state has one. Once that happens, that gives the hospital, the law gives the hospital the right, they have all the power and the control to remove that patient from their life-saving breathing machine, to pull the plug within 24, 48 hours against whatever is written in their healthcare proxy or medical directives, against their deeply sincerely held religious beliefs, against the families, their rights to advocate for their loved one. It all goes out the window. And that's when we really want to try to save somebody and somebody contacts Dr. Byrne or us, we have to get into court. And sadly, we don't really win these cases.
So why do we write healthcare proxies? If that's the case, why do we go out and tell everybody to have a healthcare proxy created if it's not going to stand true when you're in the hospital? If they have the right, if the hospitals or the state has the right to not to disregard it. I don't understand. I don't understand.
And that's the way, sadly, this system is set up for brain death. So in other situations, if you're not declared brain death, then I would still recommend, I always recommend just put everything in writing anyways, and make sure you have two strong advocates for you.
Yeah.
The key point is your agents, and put it in writing. But sadly, brain death is a whole different animal. And once that is declared, sadly, all the rights go out.
And when you're in that situation, they do have to reach out to a family member, right? They are responsible to work with your family, not, they can't just like, you know, if you're considered brain dead, to pull the plug without working with somebody. Am I
Right,
correct?
so they have to notify the family. In this situation with Montefiore Hospital, and it happens all around the nation, I'm sorry to say, they have to have a hospital under the law. They have to have a hospital policy. They have to provide a copy of the hospital policy to the family member, of which Montefiore Hospital never did that to Miss Kate. And in fact, we had to make legal demands on that during court. They still never submitted that to us. But they're supposed to set out, like, once they get a declaration, or like what test they're going to do to determine brain death, let the family notify them of that, have an ethics meeting, which they never had in this situation either. They're supposed to, if there's a religious accommodation that needs to be provided, in this case there was, because it was against Miss Amber and her family's sincerely held religious beliefs to not pull the plug, and she wanted all life-saving treatment and care. And again, they didn't provide the hospital policy. They never sat with Miss Amber or another family member, had an ethics meeting, and they would not turn over the hospital policy for us to see, even though we made legal demands for that. And they took their time, like they do in all these cases. They try to let the clock run out. They wouldn't give us the medical records either, until that was a huge fight in court, as Allyson was a witness to all of this.
We were so close in being able to help.
I know.
We searched over 100 facilities, somebody that would take Amber, but we were shut down because the hospital wouldn't give a referral. They fought us in every sense. And like Gina said, the clock ran out. She was without food and hydration for almost a month.
Yes.
Wow, that's
That
crazy.
is inhumane. And just seeing her treated the way she was, I will never, for the rest of my life, forget what I saw with my own eyes. It got really bad.
Yes.
And we are not going to let that happen to the next person. We are going to be a facility where we will be set up to take these patients. I never realized, I kept looking and looking and looking and calling. And then I realized I'm looking everywhere when I need to look within myself. Because I already have a ventilated patient at my house. I'm set up. I can do it, but I just didn't see it initially. So this is where my energy will be going. And I'm hoping a lot of people will join in and help me make this dream a reality, because change comes within us, right?
And Amber is the guiding force for that. She's the one that her story will always be linked to your work that you're doing, because you can always share her story
She's a beautiful young lady.
Yeah.
Starting out her life. She had one semester left in college. You know, she was going to be an accountant. She was really smart, full of life. And to see what happened to her is just really unacceptable. And we need to be the change.
Well,
Can I interject? I'm sorry.
Oh, I forgot you were there, Marie. I'm sorry.
No. And I'm sorry. It's been a busy weekend and we're actually out people right now. So I wasn't prepared for this call 100%, but I'm listening and we have a severe need. Gina, I'm interested to pick your brain a bit. We have these most forms, right? That in New York State, I know I work in nursing homes and we make them fill out that pink form and DNR, DNI and the whole thing. And is there some way, I mean, I try to give people a Catholic healthcare proxy and that kind of helps, but I went back and read it just recently. It doesn't say anything about saying, I will not accept a brain dead diagnosis, and maybe that needs to be added in so that this way in New York State, they cannot say brain dead. I feel like we're missing something in the paperwork and it sounds so silly, but that's what the facilities go by. So Montefiore had a DNR maybe, or they didn't, but they always go by the paper. And if there's something there that we can add in, you can say that there are wishes, but I don't unfortunately need to be on paper. And you know that, right? Gina, I'm loving the way you
So everything
say all that.
Sure, absolutely. Everything needs to be put in writing. You need the ironclad document and spell out the wishes to a T. But
Right.
I have to caution that when the patient is declared brain dead, and they go and do that anyways. So we, in my case too, with my friend, I talked to the neurosurgeon and we specifically stated it was against her sincerely held religious beliefs to have an apnea test, because what the apnea test is, in order to declare a patient brain dead, they remove them from the life-saving ventilator, and they don't remove them for 1, 2, 3 minutes. They could remove them up to 10 full minutes and then say, oh, look, they can't take a breath without the ventilator. Their brain must be dead. Once they do that, so we specifically said, do not conduct the apnea test. So I just want the world to know, say no to the apnea test. They do it anyway, sadly. So the neurosurgeon said, it's okay. I don't need to do it. Come to find out, they did it on my friend. I was fuming and I called him and I said, how is this done? And he said, I don't know. It was a mistake. I called the hospital and I said, who ordered this apnea test? It's against her wishes. And they told me it was the neurosurgeon that told me he wouldn't do it, lied to me who did it. They do this once they, and Dr. Byrne, I suggest everybody looking up, if you're not familiar with the legendary Dr. Paula A. Byrne. He spent his life career devoted to this cause. And he has so much information. And before we go to, I just want to make sure to say where you can get a wealth of his information and to protect and preserve your life and the life of your loved ones. But it's a whole different animal when it comes to brain death. And again, what happened in my friend's situation too, I was very new to this, didn't know what brain death was. Dr. Byrne, God sent me to him. He mentored me through the whole thing. We've been close and working on cases ever since. Thank God for him. I said, but Dr. Byrne, my friend who had the Catholic healthcare proxy, but she wrote in on the HEP in her own words, and this is what's terrible what the judge did, because it was her own words. I am not an organ donor. I opt out of any organ tissue donation. I believe in life support. I want all life-saving treatments. She spelled it out, and the judge chose to put more credence to the pre-printed Catholic diet. It was the Syracuse Diocese form that says that as Catholics, we don't have to have all life, extraordinary means, which is okay.
Right.
But if the patient wants that and it was spelled out, it was completely ignored, blatantly ignored, because again, the courts are complicit in protecting this billion-dollar industry too. So when this was happening with my friend, I didn't understand. I said, but Dr. Burns, she's clearly not an organ donor, so why would they still kill her? Now I understand, and he taught me, well, it's because they cannot have any, once you're declared brain dead, they cannot have any of them recover, because then it throws the whole brain death out the window. You need a lot of trust to be able to get people to be donors. What people don't realize, when you're a donor, it seems like a wonderful thing, right? Like you're giving life to somebody else because we're taught that you're dead. What the people don't know is that they're not dead. The donor is alive. You cannot have dead organs. They don't work in a living person. They don't tell you that. And when the organ transplantation team comes into the operating room to dissect the heart or the other vital organs, that's when the patient fully dies. And what happens in there too is their blood, when they get cut into, their heart rate goes up, their blood pressure goes up. The body knows it's always trying to protect itself. They have an anesthesiologist in there too that keeps them paralyzed. But there are many cases of people that were declared brain dead. They were actually woke up on the operating table. And Dr. Byrne interviewed, you could look this up on YouTube. It was a patient in his 20s, Zach Dunlap, Dunlap. And he was an organ donor. And he was brought into the operating room. The organ transplantation was there. He woke up on the table. And when Dr. Byrne said, could you hear? Because they're in comas. They're in deep comas and they need time. The brain needs time to heal. And they need time to help wake up. The brain is miraculous. It just goes quiet because that's part of the mechanism of healing. But what happened is he said he could hear and he was getting very angry because he couldn't move and they were about to. This happens a lot. So we need to raise awareness and learn how to protect.
Yeah. And then I think that we also have to have the conversation about, then what do we do? Right. Yeah. I have no idea. I'm so far medically removed, but what do we do if a person is unconscious and on a ventilator for a long time and because of they're not physically, they're not terminally dead, I keep forgetting the terminology and I don't want to use the wrong one, but if they're not permanently, deceased, if they're not, and they just put that title on them, what do we do? Like, where do we go? What do we do? How do we be humane about it? I know we don't have answers for that, but that's what's going through in my brain. Like, we want to be considerate, we want to be kind, we want to be loving, we want to be compassionate, we want to do all those things, but we want to do the right thing for our family. And then, it's very, 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 very
I think
hard.
I think it should be the family's choice and decision,
Yeah,
not the
definitely,
hospitals.
Not the hospital or the state.
definitely,
And they
definitely,
need time.
definitely.
One
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
is not enough time.
Right.
What difference does it make for a young person to have a little more time, to have a special ending with their family if things aren't going well? Why does it have to be so rushed? And why do people have to be treated so poorly in our system?
Yes.
And we have to do that before they state that they're deceased. Yeah, like before they get that label. Before they get that label, it should be I believe that it should be the family's right to make that decision. That I will say. I mean, I know that, our foundation has different, we're a community, we're a committee, we're a board, we have all different feelings. I'm not going to speak for my foundation or this show. I'm going to talk from my personal belief is that we should all have the right to, as family members, to care for our family.
Yeah.
Like that's from me personally. That's my own personal belief. That doesn't denounce any decision that's made from that family member. It's just that family member should be able to speak
Part of it.
and we should honor our last testament. What is it called? Our when you write up what you want to happen.
Or will?
Or will we should it should be honored. No, the life test, the oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the
healthcare proxy.
the healthcare proxy. We should honor the healthcare proxy.
Yes.
Healthcare proxy should be honored. I do want to go back 1 second and Maria, do you want to share how you got connected to this, or do you want Allyson? Because I know we never really shared that you were on the show because they can't see you. Allyson, give a little bit of information of how, and like I said initially, that this show has been evolving. And Allyson has been wonderful. Okay, we need this person, we need that person. I'll get this person, I'll get that person. And she rocks. She rocks with throwing things together. And I don't think things need to be perfect. You know what I'm saying? I think conversations like this really just need to be had. So whatever way we brought it together, we're bringing it together. So Allyson, share a little bit about Maria. And then I don't know if you feel comfortable in giving a little piece of information of how you're feeling, Michael. I'll let you sit on that.
I think that this whole journey, since 2007 has been much bigger than myself. I follow it. I meet the most incredible people along the way, literally, and our team is growing and growing. I've never physically met Maria, but did we connect? We connected so well, and her dream is to build a center, and I'm going to build a center, and I'd like to do it together. I'd like our husbands to connect. They're both builders, and I'm just going along with this incredible journey, and we just want to keep sharing with everybody, and come join in. Whoever wants to join in and help, you can contact us on nbli.org send me your email. I'll give you a call. I've received so many phone calls since Amber this past month, desperate phone calls. Even a phone call from the 3rd floor in the same hospital, same story. Husband went in for surgery, went wrong, declared brain dead. It's really unfortunate. And Gina was there on one of those last days with Amber. And I don't want to bring something really horrible up, but I'm going to bring it up because it's very important to show the lack of care that Amber got on that one of the last days before she passed. There were maggots found on her, and talk about inhumane. And they didn't want to clean the infected area and give antibiotics on somebody that was alive, not dead. She's not a corpse. And I don't think that none of us should ever have to witness or tolerate any of that in any hospital. Gina?
Yes, that was very devastating and a very mortifying day. I was headed back to upstate New York and I wanted to make sure I visited Miss Amber. So Miss Kay, the sister, took me in. And while I was there, we saw maggots that were in her hair. So it was just, it should never be happening in the United States hospital, period, or anywhere for that matter. And we tried to get help for her, but the hospital said that they couldn't give the antibiotics because she was dead and that there was a court order. So why she got them is because there was the head wound from when she had her surgical incision that became infected. And of course, once they declared her dead, they treat her as dead. A living being, they treat her as dead. And so all treatment stopped. So that for the maggots came because the tissue was very heavily infected. And it's just devastating because these people are human beings and they have a serious problem. They have a brain injury that needs treatment and help, and they need time. And whether they live or die, you know, that's up to God, but they're not treating these patients with dignity and they're not ministering to them. And we are now under a culture of death in our society. We're no longer under a culture of life. And we're seeing this more and more in our nation, which is very devastating. And what we can do is, like, shows like this are wonderful to raise awareness. And think we need facilities like Ms. Allyson is going to be working on, and thanks be to God for that, because we need that. Once we can figure this out legally and through legislation, we need to have a safe haven, a refuge, a place where they can go to, where we can save these people and let the family, like you say, decide their call, the patient's wishes that need to be respected, that aren't respected. But what we need to do, I've been working with Dr. Burns, we need to have a national education campaign on this. And what we need to do is we need to change the legislation, because it's the UDDA law, which is the Uniform Determination of Death Act, that each state follows those guidelines. And those guidelines to determine death are based on a group of volunteer lawyers. It's the ULC, the Uniform Law Commission, that sits on a committee, and they decide the determination of death, because we know killing is illegal. So they have to make a quote illegal. It's why it's a legal fiction way to get around this in order to get the organs, because we need the donors to be alive to get the organs. So what we need to do is we need to, UDDA is a bad law, does not protect life. We need to get legislation in there to replace and repeal it with a new model statute that we have. And before I leave too, I just want to go over this really quick.
Absolutely.
But Allyson, continue talking. The maggots was, I can't get that image out of my mind. And this was a poor young girl, had her whole life ahead of her. She came to this country on a visa. She was on an F1 international visa to go to school. And the most devastating thing of this too is that her father was trying to get a legal visa to come here. And the hospital said he'll just have to say his goodbyes over the phone, and he'll have to see her body when she comes in a body bag back to Jamaica.
Very sad.
And that's how they treat these patients.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad. I have a lot of thought, which I'm going to share, but I want Michael to, if you feel comfortable, Michael, I don't want to put you in any position to share anything you don't feel comfortable sharing, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk, because I know you've been listening.
Well, I guess I have a good feel story. I I find this thing just Gina and Allyson just horrifying. I just can't. Seems like I say that a lot every day. Unbelievable. That's my favorite word. But it's been about a year and a half ago. We got a call, and it was a stroke situation. And it was a young lady that was 29 years old, and she had a 10-year-old son. And I thought I had a major stroke, I thought, and it didn't compare to her. She had a major stroke. She couldn't talk. She lost her right side completely, and she was in a hospital bed. She couldn't stand. She couldn't even make a sound. All she could do, they knew that she appeared to be crying. And she had been here in several, they had been, well, I won't say which hospitals, but basically her parents had been told she was going to be a vegetable. She would be better off not alive. And her mother refused to give up. And she was trying desperately everywhere, and Believe got a call and said, can you help her? And of course, we didn't know, but we work with a private facility, and we offered to fund her as a grantee, and she went to this private facility. And believe it or not, today she is now standing.
Wow.
She is now saying, she's not talking completely, but she is saying certain words, and she is smiling. And her son, when she stood up, the day she stood up and she said yes and no, and she smiled, everybody was crying and laughing.
Uh-huh.
But if her mother would have given up and done what the doctor told her.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we actually have another foundation friend, Kristen Misty, Misty and Chris, who, when Chris suffered his stroke, they actually told Misty that they were recommending that they pull the plug.
Yeah.
And he is alive, kicking, and he does videos on Twitter and YouTube and the whole thing. And he's in the workout gym. So those types of stories really should bring some information, some testimonies from those of us that could have been, and look at us now and just hear us, just work with us. I know Allyson, and I know Eugenia, like, I just feel that you don't want to, you want to work with them. You want them to work with us. We want to help. We want to work together. We don't want your side, our side. But we want to work together to make things humane and to make things loving and to make people feel understood and to compassion. We need to be the voices for those that can't speak. I couldn't speak when I had my stroke, and thank God I had my family around me fighting for me. It's sad. It's sad that what Gina's sharing and your witness to, Allyson, is the truth, and people don't know the truth of the laws out there, and they need to understand them so that when they get in that situation, they can at least reach out to you, Allyson, you, Gina, and start to protect their loved ones that are in that situation. Oh my gosh. And the truth is, we didn't even, Michael was actually scheduled to be on last month's show as a co-host, last month's show, but we rescheduled him for this month. And look how things worked out, that he could give a testimonial story without knowing that this was going to be the topic. He had no idea. This happened like within the week, that we asked Allyson to be on. So it's life is pretty miraculous, it's pretty miraculous. So Allyson, let's talk about, and Gina, let's talk about the hospice and the palliative, what is it called?
Palliative care.
Palliative care, because I know with my family, with some of my family members that were passing on, that we couldn't put them in hospice yet because they weren't like at that point where they knew they were going to pass. Like it wasn't a few days. You can only go into hospice when it's a few days. But talk about that, feed into that a little bit.
The building that I have now in Medford was built for a second floor to be on the building, but it never happened. You know, we never really thought about it. But now with this palliative care idea and expanded rehabilitation, I want to make that happen because we will be able to take people like Amber. You know, the judge was very good with us during the court case. She wanted to hear what we had to say. And a lot of times when you're in the court, it's yes or no answers. And it's the hospital discrediting, you know, trying to discredit us. And it was very intense. But the judge did allow me to speak and get my wishes out there. And she wanted to transfer Amber to the house, the Brendan house that I run. But we need a place like a palliative care that has ventilators and doctors. And so to reach this bigger goal is going to take some group effort and a lot of support, a lot of fundraising, but it's so needed. And I know Gina is going to be there to back me up on this.
Definitely.
And Maria, who had to leave the phone call. And
yeah, Maria just, yeah, she, you know, we all have lives, and she was gracious enough to join in and just to give her insight into it. It's, I don't know, it's just, it's like, I mean, I think I'm at the state where the Ford that's coming to me is flabbergasted over the information that Gina, you provided to us. It's very sad that we're in that situation where it's because of the donors, the donor centers or donors organizations that, and honestly, now that you said it to me, it does make sense that you can't put a not living organ in a person to keep them alive. That does make sense, but at least let it be the family's decision as to that transition. And honestly, like you said, Allyson, I mean, you have to give people time to process. Like it can't be, okay, they're gone. Okay. Like you have to be able to grieve and process and think about, you know, what's going on. Like it's just, it's sad. It's crazy.
So the good that has come out of this very, very sad story is Kay, who's Amber's sister. She's 5 years older, and she is looking to start a new life.
Yeah.
So the room that we were holding for Amber and that we fixed up, we got the hospital bed, we were prepared, we were working hard, is now a room where Kay is staying. And Kay is going to work and help people with brain injuries.
Wow.
And help me write grants and make a difference and make the change and be the change to honor Amber. She's incredible.
Wow.
All our effort that we put into Amber is still there, but it's redirected into her sister, who's going to help us with a bigger picture.
Yeah, and she's going to do wonderful work. She's going to help so many people in honor of Amber. You know, that's the gift. That's why we wanted to do this show, to honor Amber, to really, you know, to let, this is Amber's voice. You guys are speaking for Amber. Amber, I can hear screaming from the other side, like
always.
Yeah, always. You know, they're sharing my story. Like, you know, listen to them. They're sharing my story. It's important information.
And Renee, she hung in there without food or water for 4 weeks. People don't live that long.
No.
She hung in there, and you could just feel when you were in the room, right, Gina?
Yes.
Feel her spirit to say that, you know, something good is going to come out of something so bad. You could, and I still feel it. She passed away a week ago yesterday.
Yes.
but we still feel her so strong. And that's what we're going to take with us.
Wow.
And whatever we do after,
Right.
for his
And,
name.
and she's already touched so many lives, and there's so many more to come through the work that we're
Wow.
doing in her honor. Yes. And
What
thank
an
you, Allyson, for making all of this possible.
Oh,
Now, not just me, it took a lot of people to make.
I know it's like a team, but you're a
Yeah.
good connector.
yeah.
You're connecting everybody. But if I could too, I just want to read. So so this happens all the time in our nation. And there was another case Dr. Byrne called me about a few days ago, and it was in California. And it was a woman that reached out in her desperation for her son that was declared brain dead. So Dr. Byrne sent me this text last night, and he said, and it's from the mother. Dear Dr. Byrne, I wanted to thank you for your support through the situation with my son. Unfortunately, the hospital ended his life support yesterday. There was nothing I could do. They were doing what they wanted no matter what. I don't know how I'm supposed to cope with that thought from this point, that a hospital would end your life that way, when we are to believe that that is where we should turn when we're in desperation like that. And on top of losing my son now, I have to make arrangements for him that I simply just don't have. I want you to know you truly are God sent. You were that one bit of light that made a difference to me, and I needed that, so I can never thank you enough.
Wow. That's so powerful.
And I know Allyson is getting so many calls and texts and emails, people that are just such desperation, and we have to let them know that there is hope, and we need to bring hope and light to this situation.
I mean, what's coming, I mean, I'm always about communicating, I'm sure you guys are the same as well. I mean, I would like to invite some senators onto a show and have a conversation with them. Let's do it. Let's have a,
Do
let's,
it.
let's do it. Let's,
Yes.
if you know any, I mean, I'll put an email, email out to senators, anybody because it will take somebody special
Yes.
to come and give, like, what's the back end? Why do you do this? Like, do you know why? Like, you gotta explain to us. You gotta, like, just to have them have the conversation, because maybe we can enlighten them a little bit. Maybe they're so busy they just go in and make a decision. They don't know the stories. Like,
With my personal experience, excuse me, and my father being in a coma for 7 weeks, and we had to medevac him, and we were told that, he would never wake up. And it was really bad. It was scary. I didn't know what to believe. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a daughter that loved her father. My mom was killed in a car accident and died of a traumatic brain injury at 49 years old. So when my father, who was such a powerful businessman and just someone I admired so much, when I saw him in the coma, I saw him come out of the coma, I saw him in a wheelchair, I saw him fight. I put myself in the wheelchair, just wondering what it was like to be paralyzed on the one side. And he lived.
Yes.
He came back 75%. We traveled with him. He had dinner with his grandchildren.
right.
If we would have given up or listened to the doctors, none of this or what we're doing would even be happening. Like, it was a miracle, and everyone deserves their miracle. And the only way you're going to get your miracle is to have some time.
Yeah.
Feed the person, give them nutrition, give them love, surround them by good people and prayer and everything. Why take that away from somebody in 1 week and label them dead?
I know.
I treat them like a corpse and not human. It's just unacceptable.
And they treated Miss Amber like they do all these patients. Once they're declared brain dead, they treat them as if they're like a criminal or a prisoner in a prison. So they had like a nurse that was standing guard there, watching over her, watching everybody that came in. Everybody that came in had to sign who they were. And they were just observation, like watching Miss K, the sister who slept by her bedside for 20-something days, just watching her every move. They just treat these patients like they're prisoners. And Dr. Byrne always says that they're on medical death row, and they're awaiting their execution. And because of my friend, Dr. Byrne wrote an article that he published in Renew America, and it was called execution again in a New York hospital, because the irony here is that 5 years preceding that, my friend, they killed her brother in the same hospital, the same means, brain death, and he didn't have a healthcare proxy. So my friend did everything right to protect her life, and that's why she spelled everything out perfectly. It still didn't matter to the judge at the time, but Dr. Byrne wrote an article on her brother 5 years before, and it was execution in a New York hospital, and it was his story, the brothers. And then 5 years later, he was back to write one on my friend, execution again in a New York hospital. That's on Renew America too. And if I could just say, Dr. Byrne has the Life Guardian Foundation, and this is a foundation I recommend to everybody looking up. It's a wealth of information how to protect and preserve God-given life from completion until true death. Talks all about the organ transplantation, the truth, facts about being an organ donor, what you don't know can kill you. He also has many different pamphlets in here. Do your organs belong to the government? So this is just, everybody should read this, and it was written by him. There's a few other informational flyers in here, brochures. To breathe is to live. The ventilator assist breathing. The ventilator cannot work on a dead person. These patients are not dead. They need to be alive in order to be able to expel. And as you know, like with Miss Amber, her heart stopped beating on the dead. Then they declared her officially dead. A living person on earth until true death. Another article written by Dr. Paul Byrne. He also has in here a medical card that we should carry around to protect and preserve life. You sign it, it directs that all medical and surgical treatments and care, including nutrition, hydration, however administered, be given to protect and preserve my life. And in red, it says, red print, do not hasten my death, do not shorten my death, do not do an apnea test, do not take any organ for transplantation or any other purpose. Okay, so you can do that. You need witnesses.
Can you do that as well as be an organ donor?
This, no. So this is if you don't want to be an organ donor and you
Okay.
want, yeah, you would sign this instead. And then the other one he has is the Life Guardian Foundation. This talks about repealing and replacing the UDDA, which is the bad law, replacing it with the model statute, which says no one shall be declared dead unless respiratory and circulatory systems and the entire brain have been destroyed. Such destruction shall be determined in accord with universally accepted medical treatments. And this is if we can get our senators on this would be great, because again, I don't think they're educated in this. They just don't know. I think that's why we want to do a national educational campaign. If they can be educated what this truly is, we need allies of them to go and help us introduce the model legislation. So that's how we can make strides and inroads to try to win these types of cases.
And let's get Dr. Paul Byrne
Yes, on.
Yeah.
'cause you,
Absolutely.
92 years old.
He's amazing.
From he wakes up in the morning till he goes to bed at night, helping people.
I
Absolutely.
mean, honestly, let's come back together. Let's get, people that are on the other side, not on the other side, that's the wrong terminology, that work for the government so that could have some influence. Let's try to educate them.
Yes.
I always say, when one of my deep, and I know we have to leave in a few minutes because we're running over, but one of things that affects me is insurance, right? Insurance, they determine whether a stroke patient needs recovery, and to me, it's like, how could they decide what I need for my recovery? Like, all our cases are different. Our doctors should determine that. And I even wrote a letter to the president of the United States back when Obama became president, only because his son suffered a stroke, and I thought it would be more palatable for him to understand what it was like to experience a stroke, because he had it touch his family. Sometimes it's got to touch your family for you to understand it a little bit more. And I said, I want to just begin the conversation. I want to meet with everybody. I want to be the ambassador for strokes. I want to start the conversation. I'm a businesswoman. I don't want things to just go from this to that. I want to work with everybody. I want to work as a team so that we all understand and work together to protect everybody, to make it a good good feel for everybody, to make it right for everybody, you know, and I think the same thing in your case. You don't want to, you know, just tell them what to do. You want to work with them. You want them to understand. You want them to be compassionate. Yes, we understand that someone is not going to be able to to live a full life. They're going to be in that state for a long time, but please, let's make it the family's decision. Work with the families to decide on that, on that. I can't thank you both enough for bringing a lot of light to us, and we'll stay connected, and we'll come back and continue this conversation, because we got to keep it alive, in Amber, in honor of Amber. Before we go, I'm going to let you all share your last comments. Allyson, why don't you begin?
No two brain injuries are alike, as you know. Rehabilitation should be for the rest of your life, because as you know, you can continue your progress 5, 10, 15 years. I see it every day. People that couldn't talk or walk are now thriving. And let's make a difference all together.
Yeah, let's be compassionate. Let's be humane, in how we consider everybody. It's funny, because unless you've been in that place, like you really can't understand it. You can't understand it unless you've been touched with it, and you actually don't want to be touched with it, but when you are, you need to do something about it.
And I think what's really important to me, the most important thing that I have seen since I've started this in 2007, it's so important for the friends to stay by the injured loved one. I so often see friends that walk away, lead their own lives. Call the person, be there. Socialization is huge. So pick up that phone, go visit your friend that had the stroke or the brain injury.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Because we could feel you. Even if we can't communicate, we can feel you. We know that you're there. We know, it's just so important. And I mean, I'm trying to write many books, but I'm so busy. But one of the books that I really want to write is Love Them Through It. You got to love people through it. Yes. No matter who they are, no matter they come at you nasty, it doesn't matter. You need to, because you don't know what's going on in their life for them to be acting that way. You got to love people through it. You have to, it's so important. Michael, want to share any last?
I enjoyed listening to both of you. Y'all were great. Y'all both express such a caring and loving attitude. I just, it really made me smile, and it makes me sad what y'all are dealing with.
So thank you, Michael. Gina, I'm going to let you end the show, because you got the most, to pinpoint what we need to, what we're doing, why it is that we're, battling for this.
Well, thank you all very much. I just want to point out really quickly, with Dr. Paul Byrne, he was a neonatologist who his career was dealing with and helping to save the critically newborn or infants. And what set him on this life journey to discover the truth about brain death, and he goes around the world trying to help all of these people and their families, is he had a baby. It was an infant. He calls him Baby Joseph. And baby Joseph had a brain injury, and he wouldn't move. He wouldn't respond to anything. And he saw on his chart the word death. And he said, well, this infant, this baby's not dead. He's not cold, blue, stiff. He's got a heartbeat, his respiration, circulation. So that caused him to get all the information and do his investigation, what brain death really is. So they suggested, he contacted a neurologist, and they said, well, what they do in these types of cases, they stop treating them and they pull their plug. And Dr. Byrne says, well, I don't do that. I treat the patients, my patients. So he went on to treat this little baby, who went on to live and grow and go to school. And now he has 3 children of his own. So thank God for that. So what we need to do is we need to hone in on this educational campaign and just really educating the public, informing the public of what this is, and getting our local legislators, our state, our Congress people on all levels, local, state, federal, involved in this. We need allies, and we need to bring this forth with new legislation that will protect and preserve a patient's life until true death. And brain death is not true death. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I want to, something else I've been thinking about, which I really think is important for people to just become aware of, is that it's really not the staff in the hospital that makes those decisions. They got to do what they're instructed to do. Sometimes, right? Am I correct, Gina? I mean, we don't want people to get mad at the nurse or the doctor, because this goes bigger than it is. It's a state law. You know what I'm saying? So I want to make sure that
and they're trained that way. So their education is that many of them do think that the patient really is dead.
Right.
So there's a lot of indoctrination and brainwashing involved in this in order for them to be able to do what they do, and they are following orders. But again, if the nurses and the doctors are truly educated, I mean, some I believe do know that this is wrong, but they want to protect their licenses and so on and so forth, their livelihood. But the ones that don't, if we could reach them too, because evil cannot be done if people really know what they're doing, if we don't have people carrying this out.
Right.
And just that is a life, and we need to preserve that life and treat that person and with dignity. Just Amber did not die with dignity, yet she lives on, and so many others will be touched by her life.
Yes.
Right.
And we're going to end.
It's cruel. I was going to say what they did to her was cruel and inhumane.
Yeah. We're going to end it with this is Amber's voice, and Amber's going to live on through everybody that is here and working for her. And I can't thank everybody enough. I'm gonna give you the January date, if that's okay with you, and we'll try to come back around for the doctor. You can invite him as well, and we'll invite whoever we can. And actually, there's someone in Long Island who used to be the New York State representative for health. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm going to reach out to him so he can have a part of this conversation. He'd be very good to have a part, because he used to be in on the legislation for that. I'll definitely reach out to him, and I'll CC you on it, Allyson and Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for coming today. And Michael, thank you for hanging out with me for 3 hours or 2 hours or whatever. You are incredible. The work you do is incredible. Thank you to everybody. I'm just speechless today. I'm not speechless because I can talk all the time, but I think this is something that I need to digest, which is a good thought process. I need to digest it a little bit to figure out how we can move forward with humanity on both sides, because I know that that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. So thank you to everybody. Sometimes I forget we're live on Facebook, because we get in so conversational, and we care about what we're saying so much that we forget. But we're on Facebook Live with everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Allyson. Give your cell phone or your phone, or how they can reach you.
631-245-0333 or nbli.org.
That's her foundation, her center. And Gina, do you want to give any information where they can reach out to you?
You can reach out to me. I'll give them my personal email for now. It's Gina, Gina, Antonelli, Antonelli at protonmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Michael, we have your information. We shared it on Facebook and all over the place. Do you want to give your email address once again?
My email is, what is it? It's believe
at believesrf.
I know, I can't remember mine either. Don't worry about it. I'll post it. I'll post
Okay.
it. Go to Believe Stroke Recovery Foundation and you'll on his shirt there and you can look him up. His email is on that. So thank you so much, everybody. We always blow our kisses on 3. We had an incredible 2 shows. I cannot believe that. It's just amazing what God brings to me to be able to pass on. It's not me, it's God. I'm just the vessel for it. So on 3, we always blow our kisses. 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody. See you later. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Yo no sé qué tú piensas, yo no sé lo que haré, yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo, yo no sé lo que va a pasar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti, no me puedes oír llorar. El día que caminaste por la puerta, todas las memorias fueron. Mi corazón está vacío, como si tuviera ayer. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. Usted está en mi sueño por la noche. Por favor, no peleemos. Y es tan difícil para mí y para ti. Yo, ¿qué puedo hacer? No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. Mi corazón está sufriendo. No me puedes escuchar llorar solo sin ti. No me puedes oír, no me puedes escuchar. No me puedes escuchar llorar, llorar. No me puedes escuchar llorar.